38 weeks pregnant, and there's Christopher packing his bags for Las Vegas. I watch in silence as he folds his favorite shirts, flashing that boyish smile that always enchanted me, but today it only fills me with anguish. My belly is huge, and every little move from our baby Emily reminds me that labor is coming soon. "Just 3 days, Rachel. You know I planned this trip with the guys months ago," he says, without even looking into my eyes. I swallow hard while rubbing my belly. I've tried arguing several times, but he brushes off my worries like they're just pregnancy hormones. Earlier, my sister Madison called, outraged when I told her about the trip. "Has he lost his mind?" she asked. Maybe I'm crazy for still believing that he'd change when our baby arrived. Subscribe to the channel and hit like to get more stories like this. I feel a sharp pain shoot through my body as I try to reach for the remote on the coffee table. It's 2 a.m. and the contractions started about an hour ago. I take a deep breath, trying to stay calm as I dial Christopher's number again. It goes straight to voicemail, just like the last 15 times. Through the bedroom window, I watch the city lights and imagine my husband in some Las Vegas casino, probably surrounded by drinks and completely oblivious to the fact that his daughter is about to be born. Tears start streaming down my face as another, stronger contraction hits me. My hands tremble as I search for Madison's number in my contacts. She answers on the second ring, her sleepy voice quickly shifting to alarm when I explain the situation. "I'm on my way, Rach. Don't worry, you're not alone." While I wait for my sister, I check my phone again. No messages, no missed calls from Christopher. Just a few photos he posted a few hours ago on social media, toasting with his friends at some fancy bar. My bag bursts open when Madison arrives. She hugs me tight and grabs the suitcase that's been packed for weeks. "Let's do this together," she says. And for the first time since the contractions began, I feel like I can face this moment. Even if it isn't the way I always dreamed. Even if the father of my child chose a poker table instead of being by my side in the most important moment of our lives. The bright lights in the operating room seem even more intense as another contraction hits me. Madison holds my hand tightly while the medical team hustles around me. It's been over 12 hours since we got to the hospital, and Christopher is still unreachable. "Just a little longer, Mrs. Rachel," encourages the nurse. Sweat drips down my face as I try to focus on my breathing, like I learned in my prenatal classes. Classes I attended alone because Christopher always had an excuse not to go. Between contractions, flashbacks of the past few months flood my mind. The prenatal appointments he skipped, the decisions about the baby's room I made on my own, the baby shower where I had to explain his absence with a strained smile. The pain of childbirth mixes with the pain of all these built-up disappointments. Madison wipes my face with a damp towel. "You're stronger than you think," she whispers. My parents arrive at that moment, bringing with them the unconditional love that always held me up. I see in my father's eyes a mix of concern and anger. He never fully approved of Christopher, but he always respected my choices. A cry escapes my lips as I sense it's time. The doctor instructs me about when to push, and for the first time, I understand what it really means to give birth. It's as if the whole universe is focused on this moment, on a strength that comes from deep within me, from somewhere I never knew existed. And then, amidst the chaos of emotions and sensations, I hear crying. It's a sound that pierces every cell in my body, completely transforming me. Emily is born at 3:47 p.m., weighing 7 pounds and 1 ounce, perfect in every way. When they place my daughter in my arms, something shifts inside me for good. It's not just the tears of joy or the overwhelming love I feel. It's a certainty settling into my heart. Looking at that delicate little face, I understand that some absences speak louder than any presence. Christopher isn't here by some twist of fate, but by choice. And maybe it's time for me to make my own choices. Christopher finally shows up at the hospital 18 hours after Emily's birth. He has dark circles under his eyes, still wearing the clothes from the party, reeking of booze and sweet cologne. I watch his expression shift from hungover to shocked when he meets Madison in the corridor, and she fills him in on everything he missed. He enters the room where I'm with Emily, trying to explain himself. My phone died. I was at an important table. I didn't think things would happen so fast. Every excuse sounds emptier than the last. I continue rocking our daughter, who sleeps peacefully in my arms, oblivious to the storm of emotions raging inside me. "Can I hold her?" he asks, extending his arms. I hesitate for a moment, but let him. Emily wakes up and starts crying instantly. Christopher becomes visibly uncomfortable and hurriedly hands her back to me. I watch him keep his distance, as if Emily were a stranger and not his own daughter. "We need to talk," I say, after calming Emily down. "Not now, you must be tired." He tries to deflect, but I stay firm. "Yes, now. Because while you were gambling in Vegas, I was giving birth to our daughter. While you were toasting with your friends, I was going through the most intense moment of my life. And you know what I realized? It wasn't the first time you left me alone. It was just the last." I see his face waver between guilt and defensiveness. He tries to argue that stuff happens, that he needed one last free moment before fatherhood. But his words only confirm what I already knew. We're in different places, wanting different things in life. "I want a divorce," I say, surprising both of us with the firmness in my voice. I can't pretend that this is enough for either me or Emily. She deserves more, and so do I. Christopher falls silent for a long moment, staring out the hospital window. When he finally speaks, his tone is different. "Maybe you're right. It's the first time in our relationship that he doesn't try to talk me out of it, and somehow that makes everything even more final. The apartment I rented is smaller than our old house, but for the first time in a long time, I truly feel at home. Emily turns 2 months old today, and I've arranged our new space with all the care that a new life deserves. My parents helped with the deposit, despite my initial protests. It's an investment in your fresh start," my mom said, and I accepted her help gratefully. The walls of Emily's room are painted a soft shade of green, a change from the pink Christopher insisted on. I organized everything with practicality in mind. A changing table close to the crib, a comfy chair for nighttime feedings, and little details that make this space ours. Madison helped me set up a routine that works for both of us, and slowly, I'm finding my own rhythm as a single mom. The nights are the hardest. When Emily wakes up to feed, sometimes I catch myself thinking about how I imagined things would be different. But then I look at her, so perfect and so sure in my arms, and I know I made the right decision. Christopher calls occasionally, asking about her, but his visits are short and infrequent. He seems lost in the role of a dad, as if he doesn't really know what to do with a baby so little. I started attending a support group for single moms at the community center in the neighborhood. It's comforting to hear other stories, share experiences, and know I'm not alone on this journey. Sarah, one of the moms in the group, has become a close friend. She has a 3-year-old and gives me practical tips that no parenting book ever mentions. The divorce process is underway, with Dr. Carter mediating our discussions. She has a calm way of handling tough conversations, especially when it comes to setting custody arrangements for Emily. Christopher agreed to joint custody, though in practice I'm the primary caregiver. We agreed on a child support amount that, combined with my remote work as a consultant, lets us maintain a comfortable life. Sorting out the finances was a challenge at first. I created a detailed spreadsheet of expenses, separating essential costs from extras. I learned to shop more mindfully and discovered that we don't really need half of the things I once thought were necessary. The money I save goes into an emergency fund and another for Emily's future. My routine now revolves entirely around her needs, but gradually I'm finding time to take care of myself too. I do yoga in the morning while she's still asleep, and I've started reading again in quieter moments. Madison visits regularly, bringing not just practical help, but the kind of company that recharges my energy. The most surprising part is how this new life, although challenging, has brought me a peace I never knew before. I no longer have to conform to someone else's expectations or justify my choices. Every decision I make is for Emily's well-being and my own growth. Slowly, I'm rediscovering who I am, beyond being a mom, a wife, and a professional. I'm becoming a stronger, more authentic version of myself. The first supervised visits with Christopher were tense. Now that Emily is 4 months old, she cries every time he tries to hold her, and I notice her discomfort. "She doesn't know me," he admits, with a mix of sadness and guilt. I explain that babies need time and consistency to bond, but I can tell his visits remain erratic. We set up a visitation schedule through Dr. Carter, 2 afternoons a week and an alternating Sunday. Christopher often cancels last minute, citing work commitments or other unforeseen events. Each cancellation is a small disappointment I have to manage on my own, reminding myself that I cannot control his choices. Negotiating Emily's routine is complicated. Christopher wants to take her for weekends at his place, but he doesn't have any experience with the basic care. I insist that he learn first how to prepare the bottle, change diapers, and recognize her different cries. At first, he resists, but Dr. Carter helps him understand how important it is to learn these things. Setting boundaries has been a daily exercise. When Christopher shows up unannounced or tries to change the schedule at the last minute, I have to be firm. Emily needs routine, I explain. Last-minute changes make her anxious. Slowly, he starts to understand that being a dad means more than just showing up when it's convenient. Money discussions are another sensitive spot. Sometimes Christopher is late with the child support, blaming temporary financial problems. I've learned to keep a reserve for those moments, but I've also been direct about the consequences of these delays. Dr. Carter helped us set up a more efficient communication system for financial matters, using an app that records every transaction and agreement. The most challenging part is keeping my cool when Christopher makes decisions I consider reckless, like when he wanted to take Emily on a boat ride without proper life jackets, or when he planned a long trip without considering her sleep routine. I've learned to express my concerns constructively, always focusing on her well-being. Gradually, we started developing a more functional dynamic. Christopher began attending some medical appointments and showed more interest in understanding Emily's needs. There are still moments of frustration. For example, when he posts photos on social media portraying himself as a devoted dad, even though he's missed important milestones. But I've learned not to let those things get to me. Dr. Carter suggested we use a communication journal, where we record important details about Emily, her milestones, medical needs, and preferences. This helped reduce misunderstandings and create a shared record of her development. We also set clear rules about important decisions, changes in her routine, medical issues, choosing daycare. Everything needs to be discussed and agreed upon by both of us. With time, I realized that co-parenting doesn't mean being best friends or agreeing on everything. It means creating a healthy environment for Emily to grow up in. I learned to separate my personal hurts from parental issues, always keeping her best interests at heart. It's a delicate balance, but every day I feel more secure in this new role. With Emily turning 6 months old, I decided it was time to get back to my career in a more active way. Working remotely as a consultant has been good, but I feel like I need new challenges. That's when I received an unexpected message from William, my former coworker, about a project manager vacancy at his company. The interview was scheduled for a Tuesday, and Madison offered to look after Emily. I put on my navy blue blazer for the first time since I was pregnant, touched up my lipstick, and allowed myself to feel that old professional confidence returning. William's company is modern, with a flexible remote work policy and on-site childcare, benefits that seem tailor-made for my new reality. During the interview, I was honest about my situation as a single mom. To my surprise, it turned out to be seen as a plus. Time management and problem-solving are skills moms naturally have, the HR director commented. I left with an offer that exceeded my expectations, including a flexible schedule that lets me balance work and motherhood. The adjustment to this new routine came gradually. I hired a part-time nanny, a lady named Rose, who has years of experience with babies, and immediately connected with Emily. On the days I have to go to the office, Rose comes early and keeps our little one on her usual schedule. Technology even allows me to check in through video calls during breaks. William has been an incredible mentor, helping me navigate the new corporate environment while juggling motherhood. When Emily got sick during my first week, he didn't hesitate to rearrange meetings so I could take care of her. "We're a family-friendly company," he said, and for the first time I felt I didn't have to choose between being a mom and a professional. My first major presentation was for an international client. I spent nights studying after Emily fell asleep, preparing every detail. On the day, I led the meeting with a confidence I hadn't felt in a long time. The project was approved, and that long dormant sense of professional achievement burst back full force. The higher salary allowed me to hire a housekeeper twice a week, freeing up more quality time with Emily on the weekends. I also began investing in my professional development, taking online courses while she snoozed. It's incredibly satisfying to see my bank account grow, knowing I'm building a solid financial future for both of us. Christopher was surprised when he heard about my new job. "How will you find time for Emily?" he questioned. I calmly explained that organization and planning are key, and that our daughter is well cared for and happy. Gradually, He started to respect my professional decisions more, especially after seeing how well Emily is developing. The most rewarding part is realizing I'm setting an example for my daughter. I want her to grow up knowing that women can be both devoted moms and accomplished professionals. Every work achievement, every smile on Emily's face when I get home, reminds me that I made the right choice in pursuing my professional growth. Even if it isn't always easy, it's incredibly fulfilling. The months went by, and with them, I saw not only Emily grow, but also significant changes in Christopher. It was surprising to see him start to transform when Emily turned 8 months old. The turning point happened during one of his visits, when she took her first steps toward him. I saw in his eyes something I had never seen before, a genuine spark of responsibility. From that day on, Christopher started showing up consistently at our agreed times. His visits shifted from being just formalities to real moments of connection with our daughter. He learned to change diapers without complaint, discovered how to lull Emily to sleep by singing that old song his own dad used to sing to him, and began to take a real interest in her development. During our meetings with Dr. Carter, our communication improved significantly. Christopher started offering constructive suggestions about raising Emily, like the idea of setting up a joint education fund for her future. He even began attending a support group for divorced dads, something I never imagined he'd do voluntarily. On one particularly meaningful Sunday, Christopher sat me down for an honest talk. "I'm really sorry for everything," he said, "especially for not being there when she was born. I know some things can't be fixed, but I want to be a better dad." It was the first time I saw him take responsibility for his past choices without any excuses. Our daughter now has 2 sets of toys, one at each house, and Christopher transformed his old office into a special room just for her. He's even learned to schedule his work meetings around our visit days, something that used to seem impossible. When Emily came down with a high fever last month, he canceled a business trip to help take care of her. The most interesting part is witnessing how this transformation has affected other areas of his life. Christopher started therapy, significantly cut down on his drinking, and even went back to playing sports, something he had given up years ago. Emily deserves a healthy, present dad, he told me recently, and for the first time, I really believed he had grasped the meaning of fatherhood. Our differences still exist, of course. We still disagree on some parenting methods and sometimes need Dr. Carter to mediate certain decisions. But now we can hold a respectful dialogue, always focused on Emily's well-being. He learned to consult with me before making major decisions about her, and I learned to trust his judgment as a father. Seeing his evolution made me reflect on how people can change when they truly find motivation. Christopher never became the husband I needed, but he's becoming the father Emily deserves. And that brings me a peace I didn't expect to find so soon after our separation. In our conversations about Emily, moments of mutual understanding occasionally arise. Not romantic, but a realization that we're both committed to doing what's best for her. It's a different kind of relationship, more mature and focused, which allows us to raise Emily in an atmosphere of respect and cooperation. Dr. Carter's mediation helped us establish a more effective way of communicating about Emily's upbringing. In our monthly sessions, we learned how to discuss important issues without letting old emotions get in the way. When we disagreed about which daycare to choose, for example, we managed to reach a consensus by focusing on what Emily needed. Christopher surprised everyone by suggesting that we create a shared document with guidelines for raising her. We included everything from daily routines to the values we want to instill. This agreement helps us maintain consistency between our 2 homes, something Dr. Carter always emphasized as crucial for proper child development. Transitions between our houses became smoother. Emily no longer cries when she goes to her dad's, and she always comes back with excited stories to tell. Christopher learned to respect her feeding and sleeping schedules, and I learned not to micromanage his time with her. We developed an efficient communication system using a co-parenting app where we share important day-to-day updates about her. At family gatherings, we managed to create a friendly atmosphere. At my parents' birthday party, Christopher showed up briefly to drop Emily off, and everyone interacted maturely. He even developed a cordial relationship with Madison, something that seemed impossible just a few months ago. Dr. Carter helped us understand that a successful co-parenting relationship doesn't mean the absence of conflicts, but rather the ability to resolve them constructively. When Emily had her first health emergency, a bad flu that required hospitalization, we worked together, taking turns at the hospital and keeping each other informed about every development. The most rewarding part is seeing how this new dynamic positively affects Emily. She's growing up in an environment where, despite the separation, her parents can cooperate and always prioritize her well-being. Dr. Carter assures us that this emotional stability is essential for her healthy development. Subscribe to the channel and hit like to get more stories like this. Emily's first birthday party is a moment of celebration and reflection. I decorated my parents' garden with colorful balloons and little details that represent everything we've been through in this first year. Christopher arrived early to help with the preparations, a sign of just how much our dynamic has changed. I watch as Emily takes her tentative steps among the guests, wearing the dress that Madison specially picked out for today. She smiles at everyone, naturally moving between my arms and Christopher's in a way that warms my heart. My parents snap photos, proud of their first granddaughter, while Rose, our nanny, helps serve the cake. William popped in briefly with a gift, and it was interesting to see Christopher and him interacting cordially, chatting about Emily's progress. The moms from my support group also came, bringing their kids along to play and celebrate. When we sang Happy Birthday, with Emily in my arms and Christopher by our side, I felt deep gratitude. Not for the path I had imagined for us, but for what we've built despite the challenges. Our daughter is growing up in an environment full of love and respect, even if it's different from the traditional setup. I look around and see our extended family, not in the way I once planned, but in a configuration that works perfectly for us. Emily has 2 loving homes, parents who have learned to put her needs first, and a support system that helped us get here. This first year has been a journey of discoveries, growth, and transformation. As I watch Emily playing with her new friends, I'm convinced that we made the right choices, not just for her, but for all of us. Subscribe to the channel and hit like to get more stories like this.